One of the best definitions of clarity that I've ever seen is capacity minus contamination. What am I doing to increase my capacity, my knowledge, my understanding, right? You're always increasing your capacity. But then we have these stories we tell ourselves, right? So we have these limiting beliefs we put on ourselves. So the more that we can remove that contamination, right? Those false limiting beliefs that are holding us back, then we can start behaving the way we know we need to behave, establishing those habits, and then we're going to get the results.
Welcome to Business Insights with Matt Milia. I'm your host, Matt Milia. And in this podcast, we'll talk about the real, raw, uncut business success secrets you won't find anywhere else. Follow my journey from entry level to CEO. We discuss real actionable items you can plug into your business right away. To subscribe to our weekly top tips, you can go to www.mattpodcast.com and join our community of elite high-level performers. And if you're interested in our inside sales company, you can go to www.appointmentstoday.com to jump on a free strategy call. And now, stay tuned for our podcast.
Hey, everybody. How are we doing today? It is Matt Milia coming to you live from Cleveland, Ohio, and you are here for Business Insights, episode number 21. And I've got the man, myth, legend, Mr. John Kitchens here. John, thank you for jumping on, brother. How are you?
Yeah, doing fantastic. Appreciate you guys allowing me to jump on and hang out with you guys for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today, guys, I'm really excited because John has mentored my mentors. So I have someone who has done it all, been through it all, which is a great MGK song, by the way. Wasn't even trying to go there with it. And would love to have you, John, just sort of share a little bit about yourself for anyone who doesn't know you. Tell everybody a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, man. It's definitely from a coaching perspective, have been able to jump in. You made me feel old there for a second, mentoring your mentors. So I appreciate that, Matt. But yeah, I think, for me, it was, my schooling, my college was, getting out of hometown, right? Where you're getting drugged down a path that, you shouldn't be going down, but having a place to land and, to where you can, really start to grow. And for me, that was, moving out to, mid-central California, just a little town called Hollister, California. And moved out there with my aunt for about 3 years. She knew the path I was traveling, and she said, I didn't have an option. I had to go. So got out there. She got me a job working at the golf resort, semi-private golf resort they had there. And, for me, and it's just like you said, your mentors, some of us have been fortunate enough to have some amazing, amazing people that we've worked for that have really taken us under their wing and really poured into us. And I was super fortunate to have that when I moved out there. And my boss, Kathy at the time, she really invested every aspect into the business side of things with me, right? So when you're at a semi-private resort, it's not just teaching, how to give golf lessons and play better golf, but it was also understanding the marketing side of things, right? And understanding that, what is, getting in the kitchen with the chefs and the busboys and the inner workings, what's going on food and beverage, what's going over in hospitality, and then giving you enough leeway to fail, right? At that time I was out there. That's when, for those of you who play golf, David Duval was number one in the world. And David Duval was sponsored by Tommy Hilfiger. And I was like, oh, man, we got to get Tommy Hilfiger into the golf shop and, set it up and start it. Oh, I like this. Let's get this. all the while it's right around 2000 and maybe one of the greatest golf performances ever in a year by Mr. Tiger Woods. And so then everything became Nike, and I was like, God dang, man, what an epic fail to get all of this Tommy Hilfiger stuff into this golf deal. But she was cool about it, right? It was just one of those things, letting you, step off out there and fail and learn from it. And, you have those lessons, but being able to have somebody so cool that's pouring into you and teaching you those things and allowing you to make those decisions and learn from those failures. So it was a really, really good time for me, and that was my school. I think I gave it a good year college try playing golf at Cameron there in Lawton, and I think I did more. We were on the drinking team, I think, was more so than anything. So, right. But it was good, man. That was it was good school, and then I got sucked back in. Like a lot of us have, and got sucked back into home, back into Lawton with childhood friends, the running organization. But what was really cool, it was, they were serial entrepreneurs. So being able to take ideas and make something of it and turning it into a business, and then they wanted to flip things. So we flipped 3 or 4 businesses during the run that I had with them over about a 3-4 year period. And, we get this novel idea, like my buddy did, that, and I always say, hey, if you're thinking about owning a bar, let's have a conversation, because it's like the worst idea. It's the worst thing that you could ever do. And that was 2004. And what's the crazy thing about 2004 was my son was born in 2002 and my daughter was born in 2004. Here I am working 128 straight days from January 1, 29 straight days without a day off. Shit's falling apart. And, you reach that point and you're like, man, something has to change. And that's when, my buddy, friend, I moved back from California and jumped into all these ventures and things with him. Man, he knew my time was up, and, word got out, and Michael Reese is the connector. So Mike and I, we're the ones that we go back to playing junior high school golf together. We were actually first roommates out of high school together, which is a whole nother conversation in itself. We don't have enough time to dive into that, but we did have some great adventures. But Michael's the connector, right? And this is cool. This is a good lesson for everybody tuning in. Just because you live in a town doesn't mean that you know everybody. Lawton, Oklahoma is small. The entire county at the time is 100,000 in the county. We have about 25 to 3,000 total transactions that happen each year in that market. And here it is, 2004 timeframe, and Jay's on radio. Jay's on billboards. I mean, he's got a wrapped Hummer, right? And I had never met this guy, right? But I felt like I knew him just because I would hear him on the radio. Actually his this is why even so bizarre. We were like, how was this even possible? His Carson's mom worked for us in the business side of things. And she drive the truck. I mean, not the wrap truck, but Jay's truck. Never met Jay, but Mike comes around and he makes the connection and sets up the meeting with Jay and myself and Reedy.
Oh, we had a little pause there.
I met them. came about a week and a half after that initial meeting, and here we are, 2020. Unbelievable.
I love it. So as far as some of the lessons learned, I mean, I work in the bar business. I actually had a friend that got into the bar business, a couple of friends. I had a friend's father who had a bar, ended up selling it, got out of it. I mean, it is a rough business. What are some takeaways though? Like, what are some things you've learned from that you applied into just everyday real estate?
Oh man. I think what was cool, and this goes even to, principles that everybody can even take away with what you're doing right now, is realizing what you don't want to do, right? Realizing what you don't enjoy, what you like. You're like, I don't know if I'm going to like that, but I know I don't like that. Right. And so it gives you that experience. It gives you that, but there were great lessons out of there. You learn from an entertaining standpoint, putting on events. So there were some good positives, but I think the biggest thing too is coming out of there is like, hell no, I don't like that. That's no fun. Right. So you start to create those boundaries. And a lot of people go a long time in life to where they just kind of go with the ebb and flow. They don't take the time to get clear on what it is that I know I'm saying no to, right? That's a hard no. And it's going through exercises like the perfect day exercise and starting to get clear on what it is that you want your life to be, right? What you want, that's the power of the vision boards, right? That's the really manifesting those things into what it is that you want. But sometimes you have to go through those experiences, and you're like, yeah, I'm good. Just because I like to have a few beers in this place doesn't mean I want to own it.
Right. Kristen, what did you have?
Well, owning a bar is, I have a friend who owns a bar, and let's put it this way. It's like when you have a friend that owns a boat, it's much better to have a friend who owns a bar or owns a boat rather than me owning it. much more, 100%. But I tell you what, he has a big success, but it's also not letting people drive home. He has Ubers for people. He's very smart about it. So because he knows how much liability is there, right? So 100%. But honestly, when I see what he has to do, I still, even though I think it's already paid off. I mean, I think he took a 6-7 year, like he paid that loan off in about 7 years, business loan. So he's made a huge success of it, but most of the time it's such a headache. But he's doing well,
Yes, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
John, you talked about guiding principles and practical application, and then of course the perfect day. What is all of that? How does that all work? Like, what is the perfect day, and how do you let the guiding principles that you have create and manifest your perfect day?
Yeah. So, the perfect day exercise really, it helps you really start to uncover who you are at your core and what your core identity. And it's the things that we see, we aspire to, that we really want to become. And when you go through that exercise, it's almost like Groundhog Day, right? If you had to live this day over and over again, what would you do? Right. And I mean, there's some guidelines, there's some questions, there's some things in there like it can't be the purge day, right? You can't do that every day. It has to be something that, you can't get in trouble for, that you're not going to die of, right? So like your perfect day couldn't be scaling Mount Everest, right? There's things like that. Right. So you just go through, and what the real power in it is when you really put the time and effort to visualize, like the moment you wake up till the moment you fall asleep, like what's the first thing that you smell? What's the senses, right? Who are you laying next to? what do the sheets feel like, right? Is the temperature cool? Like when you open your eyes, like what's the first thing you see when you get out of bed? Like, right, what are your feet? Is your feet hitting carpet? Is it hitting hardwood? Is it hitting tile? Right? When you look out the window, what do you see? Right? Do you see mountains with snow, or are you at the beach? Right? So like you go through this whole day, and are you going to work? If you work, who are you working with? Right? So that helps you get clear, like on creating the perfect avatar, right? Creating that ICP of if I had one day that I had to live over, I would work, right? Part of my perfect day is I'm working, but who am I working with? And then what am I helping them accomplish? And it's the same thing too. Like when you have lunch, who are you having lunch with? What are the conversations that you're having? And this is what's really powerful in where you start to manifest and create that. You'll catch yourself in situations at a lunch meeting or in a lunch conversation with people. You're like, man, I wouldn't, if this was part of my perfect day, I would never have lunch with that person. Right. And then it's like, you're having those conversations and it's like, that's the stupidest shit. Why are we talking about this? That's dumb. Right. And like, I would never want to talk about that. And so then you start navigating those waters and you start to surround yourself with people that are going to push you. You're going to have conversations that are going to continue to push you. And it's just all, am I either moving closer to my perfect day or am I moving further away? And it just helps you create those filters when you've got a decision, right? So many people say yes to everything that they don't have time to say no to the things that don't matter. So you have to take the time to get clear on that and know what those filters, we're just creating decision-making filters because people have a hard time in knowing how to make the right decisions. So when we get clear on what it is that we want to accomplish, what is the direction, then we start to have those filters that we can run it against to start making better decisions. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do. How fast can we make decisions, and are we making the decisions that are moving us closer to where we want to be? And if you don't have any guidelines and you don't have anything that you're running that against, then I mean, you'll flounder, right? You'll just kind of flounder. You'll go with the flow. You'll end up building somebody else's dream instead of building your own. And, it's really, and it goes back to even like what you were wanting to, kind of dive into a little bit too with productivity is like, you can't be productive when you don't know what the hell you want to accomplish.
So true. That is so true. And I love the fact that you talk about having a compass or guide to help you along in that decision-making process, because it is but being an entrepreneur is definitely one of the most exhilarating, but also one of the most challenging, and it's rewarding though. I mean, I love every second of it. I know you do as well, but there are those seconds that you're like, man, like what was I thinking? And you look back, you're like, man, this seemed like a great idea, but having that whole, like, it's almost like having, I'm about to sound like the Infusionsoft guy, the decision diamond, but it's like having your own little internal decision-making compass. I love that.
Yeah.
That's
amazing. I love, so like for me, being, we either tend to lean towards a little more creative or we tend to lean more analytical. And like for me, I'll go a little more analytical, right? So like, I want to see the data. I want to see what the numbers, what's the data telling us? So like for me, the decision-making process is, and I struggled with this for a long time, and I know a lot of people do as well, is getting clear on what all the words mean, right? So there's so many things that are just thrown loosely out there. And for the fear of looking stupid, we don't challenge, well, what the hell are you talking about? What does that mean? Right. And until you step up and like, hold on, let's just make sure we're on the same page. What do you mean by, saying that word, right? Like, well, hey, I'm being really productive. Okay. Well, let's define what productive is. What does productive mean to you? And let's make sure we're talking about the same thing. And then let's look at the data. And then, for me, and this is where a lot of people don't even think about this either, is what's the ripple effect? If I say yes to this, what chain of events will get triggered what happens, right? And so it's like, hey, I'm going to venture out here on my own. I'm going to do my own thing. Now, what the hell does that mean, right? Like, right. I'm going to be the boss. Okay, well, what am I signing up for, right? So a lot of people don't put that thought, that secondary impact, that ripple effect. And so, we all have our little, process that we go through. And, that one's been really, really good. And then leaning it up against the perfect day, right? So when you know what it is that you want to accomplish, where you're trying to get to, you can start leaning your decisions up against that. Mm-hmm. And when you have those filters and you're clear on that process, then you can make those decisions, right? So it's pretty cool once you have that framework to be able to lean up against, to make sure you're making the best decisions, not only for yourself, but also those that you have a responsibility for. So if you're a leader, right, you have your team, you're responsible for your team, right? You're responsible for not only them, right, but making sure that, they have responsibilities, they have families, they have kiddos. So like the decisions that you make, you've got to think through, how is that going to impact, the people that are under your watch.
So true. And I remember a few years back when I didn't have a decision, the decision, really just the roadmap, the guide, the being able to reverse engineer what it looked like. So I would spend all this time on projects. I'd spend time on things of thinking, which is good, but if it's not moving you towards your goal, because my goal was always, hey, the only way to make more sales is to talk to more people, build more relationships, do more networking. And it took me totally away from what my goal was. Even though I took time to strategize, I was spending too much time in overthinking and strategizing mode and not enough time executing. Have you seen that happen with any agents that you coach, or what challenges have they had in the market?
Yeah, I think overcomplicating it, right? And overthinking it, and not, really settling down on, what are the actions within my control that are going to drive the results that I want. And, you look at from a reverse engineer, like you were talking about, right? It's like, so if we're looking up, and I think, getting clear on what is the goal that you're after, right? What is the outcome that you're after? And then thinking about, you look at it from this perspective, right? There's a point where you want to go, and then getting real clear on current reality of where you're at. And so many people won't even do that, right? They just want to stick their damn head in the sand instead of looking at it, right? Reconcile that bank statement. How much cash do I really have, right? Well, how much debt do I really have? Where am I really at? And where do I want to go? And so it's most people start to jump in. It's like, oh shit, how am I gonna do that? It's like, whoa. Well, what is it that we're trying to accomplish first? And then why do I want to go there? And, not why in the judgment form of why did you do that, Matt, but why do you want to go from here to there? Mm-hmm. We can figure out how. That's the easy part. But why do you want to go from here to there? And by when? So it's I want to go from where I'm at to this point with my business by this date. Here's why I want to do that. And then you start to open it up. Well, what are all the ways? How can we do that? What are all the ways that we can accomplish that? And then you start to, close that gap. And you look at, okay, well, what's going to drive that result? So productivity for me, in the simplest of forms, all productivity is am I accomplishing the results that I want, right? So Matt, you want the business to be at this point in the next 6 months. We're either on pace or we're off pace. We're either getting those results or we're not. If we're getting those results, then yeah, you're being productive. If you're not getting those results, and now here, Matt, you can be doing the right activities, but if you're not getting the results, you're not being productive.
It's very true. So
there's a difference there, right? So making sure that we're getting the results we want. And then you look at it from the simplest of, and even go back to, am I dropping weight to get to where I want to be health-wise, right? The scale is the metric. Looking at the scale every day, it's either moving in the direction or it's not. And then you look at, okay, well, what are my habits? How am I behaving? Am I eating the way that I need to be eating to make the scale go in the direction? Am I exerting enough energy, right? Am I doing the things with my body to push it, to burn the number of calories? How am I behaving? And then if I'm not behaving, if my habits aren't in alignment, then there's something wrong with my beliefs. I have a belief factor wrong. So it's just reverse engineer. If I'm not getting my results, I'm not behaving, I don't have the right habits. And if I don't have the right habits, something's off in my belief, right? And it could be, I don't have to work out today. I'll be good. I just won't eat those sweets today, right? I just won't eat this or that. I'll make up my workout tomorrow, right? It's just something's off in the way we're thinking, in the limiting beliefs, and it goes back to the contamination, right? So you go back to talking about clarity, and one of the best definitions of clarity that I've ever seen is capacity minus contamination. What am I doing to increase my capacity, my knowledge, my understanding, right? So like for you, Matt, on the conversion side of things, being able to set more appointments, you increase your capacity of your skill set. Like you understand, you know where to find the best data. You've got, the best, the best time frames to be able to try to convert and make those calls. You got the right technology, right? You're using the best tools, and then you've got the right skill set, right? You're always in increasing your capacity. But then we have these bullshit stories we tell ourselves, right? Why am I going to call these people? They ain't ever going to answer, right? Okay. So we have these limiting beliefs we put on ourselves. So the more that we can remove that contamination, right? Those false limiting beliefs that are holding us back, then we can start behaving the way we know we need to behave, establishing those habits, and then we're going to get the results. So that's really, from a productivity side of things that we really, want to pay attention to, man, and really start to go back and reverse engineer if we're not accomplishing or getting what it is that we want. And shit, man, we all deal with it in one equity or another, right? It's either if our finances aren't in line, or if they are, something else could be off, right? Our family, friends, relationships could be suffering. Our fitness, our health could be suffering, or vice versa, right? Our health, fitness could be on point. Our relationships could be on point, but our business is suffering. So it's never on point, man. It's always moving, but I'm glad. That's why
I'm glad you brought that up.
Those people around us help. Yeah.
It's so impactful too if you have the right people, the right ecosystem. But it's funny because I noticed when you're talking about the working out, the right habits, all of a sudden when I start tracking my food, I'm like, how the hell am I like, can't I lose weight? Why don't I lose weight? Oh, you're taking 3,700, 3,800 calories a day and you're sedentary. Get off your ass. You need to start moving.
Yes.
So, and cut those calories down. So yeah, it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and I remember watching this when you came to Cleveland, I would say this was about a year ago. You talked about, you have this thing that you do every Sunday, and I don't know why. It just was like, wow, that is so amazing. And when I do it, and I'm going to be totally open. I don't always do it. I have to get consistent with it. That's the one thing that Stephanie and I both talk about. We have to do this every Sunday, but share with everybody a little bit about what does your Sundays look like as far as your planning goes, and then of course the execution.
Yeah, I think the thing to understand, we talk about the perfect day, but that's more so of who are you becoming, right? And having that to be able to lean the decision ladder up against, right? And help you move in that direction. Whereas when you look at it from a productivity standpoint and what it is that you're trying to accomplish, it's about trying to get that ideal week, right? Because there's not a perfect day. And there's a ideal week that has a flow to it, right? So there are certain days that like you're 100% in the business. There's just no ands, if, buts about it, right? Like you're back to back on appointments, but yet so many people get frustrated. They're like, well, I don't have time to work on my business. Oh shit, I don't have time to get a 2-hour workout in. I can only maybe get 20 minutes. I'm not going to be able to sit down with the whole family. And then they beat themselves up. So when you look at it and you look at, okay, well, what is my ideal week? And you start to get clear on, what are my non-negotiables that have to go into building out my ideal week? And the first place that when you look at it from your ideal week has to start, number one, and this is where people fail. Number one step in your ideal week is, when does your work start and when does your work stop? Period. So like you're going to get up at a certain time. You're going to focus on you. You're going to do the things, your power hours, I always like to default back to, because for those that don't have the right steps in place, I mean, pick up a copy of Hal's book, The Miracle Morning. You can get The Miracle Morning if you're in real estate, get The Miracle Morning for real estate. You're in sales, get The Miracle Morning for sales. I mean, he's got so many different ones of it, but just get a copy of it. And he gives you the framework to be the most productive human being that you can possibly be. And it's his savers. So you have, your silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. If you just adopt those 6 things into your life's changed forever. But those things incorporate into your day, right? So they need to be either sometime in the morning or after, when do you start? When do you stop? And so creating those boundaries first. Second then becomes your MVPs and your other non-negotiables. So you talked about the Sunday planning, and so this is my sophisticated Sunday planner right here. This is my my trusty yellow notepad, and where that goes through, it helps stay crystal clear on what is most important. Now, Matt, I mean, you guys go through strategic planning process. I mean, either we have a simple straight line version that we use within the coaching program. I recommend at a certain stage you graduate up to Vern Harnish's Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, or you go through Gino Wickman's book Traction, and that's the Traction book right there. And that's the process that we've adopted over the last 2 years, is going through the VTO process, the Vision Traction Organizer, really going through answering the 8 questions and helping you get clear on what your big rocks are, right? And so I do the same thing. We do it for our business, but also do it for personal, right? So having a personal strategic plan, a personal BHAG, a personal 3-year target, a personal 1 year, personal rocks for this quarter, and taking those and what is the most important right now. So out of those things, I pull what are my big 4. So like on the business side of things, we've got too many priorities right now. I think we've got 4 or 5, which is just too many. But sometimes you have to let your team learn a hard lesson.
Yeah.
And because if you've got more than 3, truth is you won't get anything done.
So true.
So having one or two is ideal sweet spot. And so like for me on the personal side, I have three. Like to keep the business side. Like I only sign my name up for one on the business side. So I go through, I've got my three and then my one here, my big four goals for this quarter. I have a couple other, targets, gap numbers, things, milestones trying to get to that I'm constantly looking at. Cause I look at this thing multiple times throughout the day, throughout the week. And what I do is then I go in through here and I identify what are the top three most valuable priorities that I have to get accomplished this week, no matter what. And those become my MVPs, my most valuable priorities. Down here over on the other side, I write my gotta minutes. And the reason that identifying your gotta minutes are things that won't make their way to the calendar. Calendar is our number one productivity tool because that's the final step right here. Once you get clear on all of this is getting it into the calendar. And the gotta minutes help you fight the old force of distraction, right? Yep. Because what happens, Matt, when somebody is running late or cancels an appointment, if you don't know exactly where you're going, what you're going to do, what happens? You get force of distraction. You go down the Facebook or Instagram rabbit hole. You come up for air 30 minutes later for your next appointment. You're like, holy shit, what did I just do for the last half hour?
Right.
So, but if you have your gotta minutes, then you know immediately what to go to, right? So gotta minutes like, man, I need to schedule a hair appointment. Hey, I need to look at finding a place on this travel. Hey, I got real quick. Let me look up some flights. Maybe I can put them on hold and then I can come back a little bit later if I have more time to finally book them. Or little things like that, right? Just whatever little gotta minute things that don't warrant actual time in the calendar, but it gives you ammo to fight off the force of distraction when it pops up. Because statistically, we battle with distraction takes anywhere from 10 to 20 hours a week of our lives. We have 168 hours. You back out sleep, taking care of ourselves, shower, it's going to leave you about 100 hours. You've got 100 hours for all the other equities of your life, right? For your business, for your family, for your fitness. And so if you're going to work 50-50, I'm going to work 50 hours and I'm going to 50 hours on everything else. If I know the force of distraction is going to try to take 10 to 20 hours of my 100 hours, if I don't have something to fight that off, then I'm losing 10 to 20 hours with my taking care of myself, fitness. I might not go to the gym because of that. I might not make or cook a healthy meal. I might order a pizza or something. I might not, I might not call my dad and spend an hour on the phone with him because I was too busy on Facebook and I lost that hour, right, of distraction. So, it helps you stay really on point on what matters the most. And so that becomes the second step, right? It becomes your non-negotiables. It becomes your most valuable priorities. It becomes your high leveraged activities. So like for you, Matt, on the calling side of things, your high leveraged activities are dialing, texting, emailing, prospecting, having conversations, setting appointments. In the real estate space, it's those activities as well as getting face-to-face, pitching your offer, negotiating deals, showing properties. And so, you've got to get those valuable priorities, your high leveraged activities, the other non-negotiables in the calendar on the first two steps. And then what happens, you go to the third step, you get everything else. And what you'll find is there's no time for anything else. And you're really helps you get clear on allocating your time to the things that matter. And that's how you get more done than anybody else, right? You understand how to fight off the force of distraction. You understand how to allocate what is the most important. You get your savers, you get your high leveraged activities, you get your most valuable priorities, you get your non-negotiables, and you plug it into the calendar. And what you'll find is that you ain't got time for nothing else. So it's a great exercise. And it's just like you said, some weeks you do good with it. Some weeks you don't, you fall off, and that's okay. there'll be another Sunday coming up that you get a test run on it again. And it's just with anything, man, the more you do it, the better you're going to get with it. Yeah.
So true. Well, and it's funny because when you were going through that, which was so impactful for everyone that was watching, and literally having the roadmap, having that all laid out for you, making sure that it's planned out. Something else that you said during our time, you actually make time too for your wife, where you guys go out, you guys have date nights. Is that still something that you hold?
That's part of the non-negotiables, right? Good. So non-negotiable is date night. And I always joke with the fellas, it's like, you're either dating your wife or somebody else will be. So, you better do it. It is funny because of all the women always are laughing and they're nodding their heads. And, because it's absolutely true. You've got to have that time for just you and the significant other to connect. And, and don't get me wrong. I mean, some date nights, one of the kiddos might be tagging along with us, but I'll make sure Zane has his iPad and his headphones so he can do his thing. And we are still able to have those conversations. So you always find a way, right? But you've got to make sure that goes down, that happens. The other non-negotiable is get one family night in with no technology. And we're all so busy, right? We're running 1,000,000 miles an hour. Yeah, well, we have dinner together. Yeah, but sometimes we don't get to connect, right? It's like, hey, I got 20 minutes. I got to jump on this call, or vice versa, right? And so, but you got to make sure you get that one, right? If you get that one solid time to connect, no technology is really powerful. And for you, maybe two family nights, maybe 3, right? But whatever it is, I mean, establish that non-negotiable. For me, the fitness side, the working out, just because, of what I've committed to, those are non-negotiable times. Right. And so you start to establish some of those and make sure that they make their way to the calendar.
Love it. A couple more real quick things, because I'm thinking about this now, and we've talked about fitness as well. Something I saw you did recently, you ran a triathlon. Is that? Or was it like an Ironman? I remember seeing that. How'd you do that? Like, because I get like 6 miles in is like that's for me has been like a personal best. And, I'm not going to tell you how long it takes, but, it's definitely something that looking at how would you do that? Like if you were to start training for that, how did you go through it? And what was that journey like?
Yeah. Break it apart and understand what the hell it means, right? So you go back to that whole, well, what does that mean, right? What does an Ironman mean? Well, okay, so that means I got to swim 2.4 miles all at one time, and then I've got to get on the bike for 112 miles, and then I got to go run a full marathon. Like, okay, all right, so let's break this apart, and you start to look at, okay, well, what's the training commitment look like? And you start to say, okay, well, time wise, and then you look at, okay, well, can I commit to that? Can I commit to that amount of time? And do I have enough runway of time to be able to get my body in a position to where I'll have an experience that I enjoy, right? It's, it's going to push me, but it's not going to kill me. And it's not going to be one of those that, God dang, that was the worst decision ever. I can't believe I, did that. Or you get into a situation to where your body doesn't even have an opportunity to complete the task. And so, you lay that out. And then for me, it's like, I got to run this by the people that matter most to me. And are they okay with me allocating this amount of time? Right. Remember, I got about 100 hours. How am I going to allocate that? And you start to look and you're like, well, training for an Ironman is anywhere from 11 to 14 hours a week, just training, not recovery, nothing else like that. And so being able to get that feedback from the family, the support crew, like, cool, man, I got you. Holly's, when I talked with her about it, she was like, I don't understand it, but I support it. And I'm like, cool. I'm good. Then I got your blessing. And so, you look at that, and then you realize you start to jump in, and you're following some cookie cutter training regimen, and you're like, holy shit, I'm in over my head. And in any situation like that, that's a good indicator. You better get some help. You better get a coach. And that's exactly what I did. And I was fortunate. I got lucky that I had started training in February of 18. And I had signed up originally for Ironman Florida, which was the 10-year anniversary of Ironman Florida. And that was in November, the first weekend in November. And I got about to July timeframe, and I knew I was way out of my depth, man. I was like,
and the weather in Florida is hell that time of the year. It's hot as hell.
And so I got my coach at that time, which was a lifesaver. And if you guys remember, in October of 18 was when Hurricane Michael came through and destroyed Panama City Beach, where Ironman's at. And so they moved it to Orlando, but they gave you the deferment to where you can move it to Ironman Texas. And I was like, yeah, I didn't sign up for where they were going to do it. That's not the experience I want. My coach was happy because he was like, thank God I get 6 extra months to work with you to get you ready. And it was a blessing. And so we had Ironman April of 2019. Great, unbelievable experience. And so I immediately signed up for Ironman Florida because I was like, man, that's what I originally signed up for. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted that experience. And for those of you, I mean, Ironman Florida is like the easiest Ironman track that you could do it. So that's why most people, beginners, first time, they'll do Florida. And so, but I mean, it's Florida, right? It's in Panama City Beach. So it's usually super nice. So we signed up. So we did Ironman Texas, and then we did Ironman Florida. And in between, I had signed back up for Ironman Texas, which is in April. And then they opened up the newest circuit, the newest course, which is in Tulsa. And I was like, man, I'm gonna say yes, because that's where my sister lives in Tulsa. My dad lives halfway between. So Tulsa, for those of you listening in, we're in North Dallas. I'm 3 hours from home where my dad lives. Tulsa's 3 hours north. So my dad's like right in the middle of where my sister and I live. So I was like, Dad can come up. That'll be super easy for him, and my sister will be there, my brother-in-law and niece and nephews. So like, man, I got to do it. So it'll be a 13-month run, 4 full Ironmans in a 13-month run. And leading up to that, I ran with Jeff Kiani. I ran first ultra marathon, which was a 50K. So a little over 31 miles. And then in January did a 100K trail run with Reese and Woods and Nate Bailey. And there were about 7 or 8 of us that put our toe on the line that Saturday down outside of San Antonio in Bandera. And it's one of the hardest trail races out there. And it's deceiving. And a lot of people think they're signing up for something pretty not too crazy, but it's one of the hardest trail races out there. It's brutal. My toes are still kind of. I've got 2 toes that are black because of it. And, I'm always grossing Holly out. I'm like, hey, lost a toenail. You want to check it out?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even imagine. I mean, that's a lot of mileage. So it definitely takes, a certain mindset to accomplish that. Was it the David Goggins Can't Hurt Me? Was that sort of the catalyst?
You reach into the cookie jar a couple of times. Yeah. It's always the push, right? Pushing a little bit more. Am I making progress, right? And one of the things that Jesse Itzler, we went to the last content and commerce that traffic and conversion digital marketer put on, right? They used to put on 2 events, traffic and conversion and then content and commerce. We went to the last content and commerce and in LA, and Jesse was the keynote. And it was probably, if you guys have never seen Jesse Itzler speak and you get the opportunity, go see him speak. He's like one of the best on stage that you can possibly tap into. And he talked about that. He talked about one of the biggest regrets that he's ever made. One of the biggest was accomplishing something and not setting the next goal. And so that was like, when I turned 40, I did my first marathon, which was New York City Marathon of all marathons. I was like, man, I'm doing 40. I gotta do something big. So I did the New York City Marathon, and that was a painful experience, right? And then never reset the goal. And so, when Mike nudged and sent me the link to Ironman Florida, I thought about it for a couple months and then really, reset the goal. So that's one of the lessons that was really profound. And that goes back to your business as well, right? You're coming up and you're about to accomplish something. You better set that next target. You better set that next goal. If not, you're going to flounder, right? You're going to get back into the day-to-day. Your standards are going to start to fall. You're not going to push when you need to push. When you need to make those extra 10 phone calls, you're not going to do it because you hadn't reset the target. And so that was just a great lesson. Not only applies on the fitness side in the big challenges, but also in your business, in your life, in your relationships and everything is once you're starting to accomplish something, setting that next target that makes you stretch a little bit harder, right? That morning that it gets cold in Cleveland. So, it's man, this bed's nice and warm. To get you out of that bed, you got to have something that you're constantly reaching for. And
Planet Fitness has almost the perfect conditions, and sometimes it's just tough to get into there. So running outdoors even more so. Yeah, I love it. Well, so for everybody that wants to get a hold of John, thank you so much for jumping on. This was really impactful, and it's always great to be able to just sit down with you, go through all of this, and especially the time blocking and creating your perfect day. I mean, if you're watching this, if you only came away with one major takeaway, this was a major success for us, because creating the perfect day, the perfect life, ultimately it's up to us, and we have to plan it out and then live accordingly. So John, thank you. For everybody who wants to get a hold of John, I've got the link down below, johnkitchens.work. And this was great. John, any last closing thoughts?
Man, just get clear. And Simon Sinek's new book, Infinite Game, is out, and he had a profound impact on our lives back in 2010 with Start With Why. And his new book, Infinite Game, we're either playing an infinite or a finite game. Baseball's a finite game, right? There's a win-loss. Football is a finite game. Life's an infinite game, and treating your business the same way. And there was one little takeaway in there, and it's either it's not so much winning or losing. It's either I'm progressing and I'm on pace, or I'm not. And it's really looking at that and pushing yourself each and every day to get where you want to be, right? Doing those things that you need to do on a day in and day out basis to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. And finding somebody that's going to not afraid to stick the mirror up in front of you and make you take a hard look at how you're behaving. And for me, fortunate enough to have that person in my life, and hopefully all of you guys can find that person that will tell you what you need to hear and not always what you want to.
I love it. That's so great closing. Great closing, John. That is awesome.
Awesome,
guys,
man. I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate everybody here, and I'll see you guys next week, same time, same place. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, Matt. See you, buddy.
Thanks, John.